So back when we had the second top speed run for the Benelli, I mentioned that the Grom was down. Reason being is because I was going to do some preventative maintenance on it, but it turns out I actually just needed new parts entirely. That's right, we're replacing all the cables, 2 throttle cables, and a clutch cable. Yep, so what I thought was just going to be maintenance turns into an actual replacement project. I had taken apart the bars right here, you could see on both sides, and I was just going to do some preventative maintenance on the cables here. You should always regularly check these and look for any wear and for lubrication, because these do suffer from wearing after a while, and these are the original cables from the bike back in 2015 when this was made, so they're quite old at this point. You can kind of see that right here, that this is badly bent, but in addition to that, see that it is very frayed, and so I think I dodged a bullet here actually. So rather than lubing these up and just doing regular maintenance, we're going to go ahead and tear them all out and replace it with brand new OEM. So the first step obviously is to get rid of the old cables so we can put the new ones in. I've kind of already done that. I'm about halfway through and just getting everything prepped so that I was going to lube them, but we got to take it a little bit further and actually pull these things out. We're going to take off this panel right here, take off the seat, just get all this out of the way so that way you can just play with everything here, see everything, and make sure that everything's put back together properly. Alright, so here we have everything. These are obviously disconnected already, but they do attach down here below the intake. So both of these go into these little slots right here. They loop up and over the intake, through a couple of loops right here on the stem, and then up to the handlebars above. One of the things I will mention is probably a good idea to take a look at the cable routing before you start pulling everything out. That way you make sure you put the new stuff in correctly, and also in my case at the very least, but if you have an aftermarket intake, also take a look at the routing here too, because there might be something different than what you originally had with a stock intake. For example, I know this one, it bulges out forward a little bit, so with the cables here having to attach all the way down here, I know it was a little tight. And then of course making sure that everything moves properly once we put everything back together. But what we'll do now is just make note of this and pull these out, fish them out, and put the new stuff in. How easy is that? All right, now for the tricky part, because this is not exactly the easiest for my particular setup. I don't have the OEM throttle tube. I have this throttle tube, which is actually a G2 Ergonomics quick turn throttle. This diameter around here where the cam is, kind of similar to what I showed you with the CRF throttle tube. This one's much wider though, all the way around, so that way there's less turning you have to do on the throttle in order to get up into the revs. What this does is basically eliminates my slack, and you can even tell here how just worn and cut in it is a little bit, just because there's so little slack in this thing. It still works, don't get me wrong, but it's just one of those things that makes it that much harder to put everything back together. It's not as easy as the CRF, that's for sure. Before we get into that, we got to fish this back through the instrument cluster. There's 2 parts here. This one with the kill switch and the power, and then this is the back side right here, and the back side is where this actually connects, and that's where these 2 pieces here go in and thread into. Once I have the cables running through like this, we'll be able to situate the throttle, then we'll cinch up this clamshell together on the bars, and then we can work on the bottom and get everything adjusted. So these actually thread into it, so give it a few turns, and the back side, we'll fish that post through. Come on, there it is. Once you have these 2 posted up, it's pretty easy to tell which one goes where. The throttle tube can only go one way onto the bars. It's just making sure that you post these into the right slots, and then we'll take the other half, clamp it over. 2 Phillips heads to close this clamshell together. I get it? There it is. Alright, so we're finished up top, or at least most of the way. All these nuts and stuff are still loose because we want to keep those loose for now. While we adjust everything, we'll tighten everything up later. But now that we have everything up here, verified that the buttons all work here, Everything's good. Now we can move our way down and finish the job by connecting it up to the actual throttle body and then finally adjusting it. You join me at the bottom of the throttle body right here, and now it comes time to finishing the job by connecting everything up down here. We have two cables that we have to worry about. One of them is going to have a short post and one is going to have a long post, and this is the orientation that they're going to go in right here. So the back one is the long post, the front one is the short post, and it'll be pretty easy to see. There's two slots right here. That's where they go in, long and short. So I think the best way to do this is just take one at a time. We'll go with the short one first, and I'm going to go ahead and just put it into the throttle body right there. Same thing with this guy. Then we just have to post these up, and then we're going to do some fine adjustments after that. The short one just has one bolt. It doesn't really have the adjustments, so this is just going to go all the way in. And then the long one here, there's two nuts that are on here. One's going to stay up on top of this and the other one's going to lock it underneath. So I'm going to separate these two and slide this on such that one nut is on top, one's on bottom. All right, so now that we have everything down here, and I think as far as slack goes, I should have as much slack as possible. These are basically all the way down, and because, as I said earlier, I have the quick turn throttle, the circumference up top is a lot larger, so it takes up a lot of my slack, so that makes sense. That was the way it looked before I pulled off the old ones. But now that we have everything routed in the same manner that we did the old ones, we're gonna test the throttle. So I have my hand on the grip. You can see right here, it's pulling the throttle body open. Now when I let go, it should snap back, just like that. Feels really nice, it feels smooth. There's no binding in that at all. Now we'll turn this all the way to the left, still snaps. Turn this all the way to the right, still snaps. Perfect. If that doesn't happen when you turn it either all the way to the right or all the way to the left, check your slack. My thoughts are that the slack should be in the most abrupt corner as possible. And for me, with this intake in particular, it's right down here because it has to basically immediately turn here to go up and around this carbon fiber piece here. I have all the slack pulled down to the end of the line right here. This is where the most of the slack is in the cables, because that's where I need it. Now that we got the throttle all taken care of, it's time for the clutch cable. The clutch cable ends right here and fishes through across to the other side of the handlebars up top here. So again, just like we did before, I'm going to make note of the routing here. Basically it goes down behind the headlight here, underneath the stem, up alongside the intake right here, fishes down behind some wires right here to the actual clutch actuator right here. I'm going to start down here actually and loosen everything up, make sure that this is detached, and then fish everything up and through, and we'll put the new one in. One other thing I want to point out as I'm taking off this old clutch cable is this piece right here, this spring. And a lot of people ask me about this when they see it. I think I found this on an old eBay listing a long time ago, but basically what it does is it takes up the slack and makes the clutch feel really springy up top. So when you pull in the clutch lever and let off, it snaps back really nice. And that's personally, I really like that clutch feel. It's not spongy at all. If I find the link or another link for these, I will post them down in the description below. Go. Alright, that's the bottom half done. So we'll finally finish off this side by attaching the clutch lever right here to the clutch cable and the perch. Just attach the cable to the lever and fish it all in there. Just like that. Alright, so we got this side buttoned up, but obviously there's a lot of slop in that thing. All right, so we're back down by the clutch, and here is the adjustments that we're gonna make. So basically, all the slack is taken in, so this bolt is as far up as it will go, and actually the threads go all the way down to here. So we're just going to tighten this so it goes up, and just kind of periodically check up top to make sure that this is as finely tuned down here as possible. Then once we get a good clutch feel, we'll actually tighten this down, lock it off, and then we'll make some more adjustments up top if we need to. Alright, so we played with the bottom down there, that adjustment, the rough adjustment as much as possible, got that all tightened down, so it's basically exactly where I want it right now. It's really nice, but I'll play with it just a little bit to kind of use these two as the fine tuner. I might have to pull it out just a little bit, I think. But first, since I have the rough adjustment already done, everything's locked down there, I'm just gonna go ahead and put everything all back together, get this all 100%. Well, we got another successful install behind us. Just goes to show how important it is to do regular maintenance and to check these things, especially when it comes to the cables on your bike, your throttle and your clutch. Those things should be checked probably every year just to make sure that they're still looking good, there's no fraying, and to go ahead and lube them up while you're checking them, provided that they're still good. Now that they're all brand new, freshly lubed, freshly adjusted, it's snappy as ever. So I'm gonna go enjoying this beautiful view I have in front of me, and I'll see you next time.